I started lying almost 50 years ago about what they did to me. The government knows who they are. It's time for both of us to tell the truth.
Decades of public denial, the Pentagon now admits there's something out there.
There's enough obvious evidence here that we need to take this seriously.
There are a lot more sightings than have been made public. We're talking about objects that engage in actions that are difficult to explain.
There's footage and records of objects that we don't know exactly what they are.
UAPs are real physical objects, and they're not ours.
It is real. The question is, what is it and how does it work?
They're not clouds, they're not birds, these are physical objects.
With no wings, no control surfaces, no engines, and yet somehow they're able to fly.
Pyramid-shaped UFOs and advanced trans-medium vehicles descending into the water while swarming our Navy ships.
They outperform some of the very best aircraft that we have in our inventory.
Doesn't seem to be any of our adversaries or near-peer technology.
Are we really dealing with something that's a paradigm moment for our species?
What was once considered a joke is now seen by a lot of people as a genuine national security issue.
Who's operating these machines? Why are they here? What do they want with us?
I understood it was a UFO. It's rotating and it's moving and it's moving closer.
And in that moment, in that instance, ships started to pop up in the sky.
The next thing I remember, I was flying into a craft.
The last time that they came to my room, I was in my 20s. I had 3 beings standing there.
And the being was right next to my face, and all I could see was its face.
He saw 2 shadow beings walking through our hallway and going down the stairs.
And I knew I was dealing with lots of different types of beings.
Oh my gosh, this is not a dream.
Who's crazy now? Who's crazy now? You all thought I was crazy. Who's crazy now? Who can explain it?
This is where it all began. I've been back here for almost 40 years. I'll tell you, if this house could talk. Something is happening. It's undeniable. There are too many people from all around the world saying the same things. Abductions have been recorded since the 1920s, but there's really no way to know for certain how long this has been going on. This subject has been taboo for such a long time and been researched by many, many people behind the scenes. In the 80s, there was a man who was brave enough to come out in public and catalog his own experiences. There's no one more prolific in this area than Whitley Strieber. Many people know Whitley Strieber as an author and a speaker. He's so much more than that. He is a true philosopher and thought leader in this field.
What is actually there and what you're seeing may be two entirely different things. The result of this has been that we build what amount to kind of folklores, and I don't mean things that are dreamed up. Folklore comes not from imagination and dreams only. It also comes from perceptions that we can't understand. Fairy lore of Northern Europe is a perfect example of this. This lore in the 17th, 18th, and early 19th centuries was very ominous and frightening. And if you went with them, you might not come back. That was the way that world saw this. It had no idea of galaxies, no idea of the actual immensity of just the physical universe, and certainly no concept that there could be very real parallel universes that might be capable of interacting with this. Now comes the 1940s. We are aware of outer space. We've thought about aliens, and suddenly they show up. And what do we think now? The fairy folk of the 19th and 18th centuries become the visitors and the aliens of the 20th century.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers. The Air Force interest in this problem has been due to our feeling of an obligation to identify and analyze to the best of our ability anything in the air that may have the possibility of threat or menace to the United States.
The U.S. government has been studying UFOs for a very long time. As scientific advisor to the U.S. Air Force under Project Sign and Blue Book, Professor Joseph Allen Hynek applied the same discipline that he used to achieve his astrophysics PhD to the study of this phenomena.
The panel had deliberately moved to debunk the whole subject and not to give it the serious scientific attention which it deserved.
Later, he would develop the classification system that has been adopted worldwide to scientifically examine each aspect of these encounters. Close encounters of the first kind involve a visual sighting of a UFO. Close encounters of the second kind leave physical trace evidence of the experience, a burn mark from the craft, material left behind after the craft departed, radioactivity, or even an unusual discomfort experienced by an individual in the form of a physiological effect. Close encounters of the third kind center on the sighting of actual entities associated with a UFO. These entities usually seem ignorant of the human beings watching their activities. On those occasions where the UFO occupants do take notice of their human observers, that leads us to consider close encounters of the fourth kind, which contain any interaction between humans and entities associated with a UFO sighting. These include actual abductions of human beings. Just like most people, I had no idea that this subject was being taken so seriously by some of the most powerful people in the world.
Lawmakers from both political parties say it is time to determine whether the objects pose a threat to the U.S.
There's stuff flying in our airspace. We don't know what it is. We need to find out. That's my position on it.
It was only after I finally realized and admitted to everyone that I, in fact, had a close encounter of the fourth kind that I started to study the subject and was overwhelmed by the amount of people who had had a similar experience to me. Incredible as it seems, these abductions of people have been recorded throughout history and are documented as far back as the Old Testament. Most folks are familiar with the fiery chariots of the Bible, but as far as I could tell, the modern focus on alien abduction started in the late 1950s.
Invaders from Mars,
capturing humans at will for their own sinister purposes.
There have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things.
For example, October 1957, a 23-year-old Brazilian farmer named Antonio Vilas Boas was plowing his fields at night when he noticed a red star growing rapidly in the night sky. The star approached him, taking the form of a spacecraft. His escape was prevented by 3 extraterrestrials who pulled him into that spacecraft. In September 1961, one of the most famous alien abductions occurred in Lancaster, New Hampshire. At about 10:30 that night, Betty and Barney Hill observed a bright light in the sky while driving home from vacation.
They took me and carried me up this ramp. God, I was scared.
In October 1973, 2 fishermen, Charlie Hickson and Calvin Parker, reported to local law enforcement of being abducted by robot-like aliens while night fishing on the Pascagoula River in Mississippi.
It landed behind us, and we turned around, stood up, turned around and looked, and must have been the door that opened where all the bright lights come out of. I seen 3 bulky-looking creatures coming toward us. So 2 of them got a hold of Charlie, 1 of them got a hold of myself, and the old big ugly creature that brought me in, he took me and laid me on an examination table.
January 1976, 3 women driving home one evening encountered a craft that seemed to be following their car in Stanford, Kentucky. They tried in vain to get away from the craft, but it centered in on them and took control of their vehicle.
Low step on the gas, let's get out of here. And I looked down, I said, "Man, you're going 85 miles an hour." She just picked her feet up and said, "Mama, I'm not touching it, not touching it."
The women escaped the car, but they all recount that they were abducted and taken up into the craft.
Scariest, terrifying thing I've ever seen in my life.
Terry Lovelace was on a camping trip with a friend in Devil's Den State Park when both of them looked up and noticed some unusual bright lights in the sky. The lights formed into a craft and hovered 30 feet over them. They were taken too.
I don't think these things really intended to hurt us. They took us inside of this craft, incredibly brightly lit. And I think that's why I came out of this with a severe sunburn. It had burns everywhere. Afterward, we calculated that we had been out probably about 4 hours. There are a lot of crazy things out there.
This list is almost endless. It goes on and on. It gave me some comfort to know that I was not alone. Other people, lots of them, from all walks of life, have experienced being helplessly removed from their homes, from their cars, and everything else that they considered reality. But it also pointed out that I was no one special. Funny, but that was the thing that calmed me most of all. This entire film is an attempt to have the audience see the phenomena through my eyes as I grapple with the truth, understand what it might mean, and then try to live with it. I wanted to ask the questions that people are afraid to ask and get meaningful answers that would unify experiencers and folks that had no idea this was going on, so that we can all face what is speeding toward us as one people, together. I felt alone. I was looking for some encouragement, some solace. I was amazed to find out how many hundreds of thousands of people have claimed contact. And I'm not talking about shiny lights in the sky. I'm talking about an entity right beside you, because that's a different thing. I found out that there were people all around the country that would get together and share their experiences. When I got to Big Arb, I was blown away by how beautiful it was, but more so how beautiful those people were, and how giving and honest they were. Each one of them had had a different type of experience. They were all otherworldly. They were strange. They were different. They were different than mine. I kind of thought that everything would be the same, but the truth is they came in every different shape and size.
I'm Kimberly Marie, and I am a lifelong experiencer. I'm an intuitive empath. I'm a yogi of 30 years, and I'm a mother. I have 2 daughters, and I'm a spiritual seeker. The earliest experience that I remember, I was in grade school. I had this feeling that I was being watched. I would get up in the middle of the night and I would look out at the woods, and I had a very acute awareness that there was something in those woods that was watching me. I also had experiences having beings in my room. There would be one being and it would be just sitting there quietly watching me. I would feel impressions on my bed as if somebody was coming to sit on the end of my bed or next to me. I felt the presence of somebody sitting in my car or walking behind me. I could feel their breath. I was having experiences that were unexplainable. They don't just come to everyone.
My name is Artur Domovic. I'm a recording artist. I'm a sculptor who loves to integrate the knowledge of the ages, the knowledge of Atlantis into his artwork. I'm an experiencer, a family man, and I channel a little bit from time to time in English, Polish, and in German. When my grandfather passed, my dad was in his bed, and at that night, he just woke up and saw him standing at the edge of the bed. And he wanted to wake up my mom, but he couldn't move. He couldn't say a word. He was frozen. And my grandpa just looked at him and basically said bye, in a sense, right? My grandpa is my best friend. And we had this very special bond, strong relationship. And I was like thinking, I want to see him. You know, I'm ready. I want to see you. That night, I walked down this hallway, and all of a sudden, as I turned to the right, this big light turns on in the living room. And this being of light steps into the room and approaches me and gets closer and closer. And I was like, I am ready, right? I'm ready. And when it was happening, I fell on my ass and I crawled backwards. Because of that fear, the great fear that has been growing in me, at that time I shut off. And that's how the strangeness began.
I decided to call these entities that I was engaging with visitors because I thought that the word aliens was a step too far. Are they entities as they appear, or is it some kind of a phenomenon that projects itself into us? Has it been here forever, maybe from the beginning of time even? One thing they certainly are visitors in the lives of those who encounter them.
I'm Alana, and I'm just an average person, but I've come to realize that I'm also an experiencer. I was living on my grandparents' farm. I was just a little girl when I had my first experience. I was in a completely black space, and I was standing beside what you would call a gray alien. It's about my size, gray, large almond-shaped eyes. I'm a bit alarmed because it's nothing I've ever seen before. Suddenly, I realized I'm laying back in my bed, motionless, and I'm looking up, and the being is just looking at me. And as I'm lying there, the being's face is changing into the photo of the white cat on my wall. It was nothing I'd ever seen before. I'd never seen a being like that.
I'm Melissa Kane. I am a doting wife and a mother of 3 and 3 fur babies as well. And I'm a business owner. Unlike my friends and other people and books that I've read and movies that I've seen about people who have contact, they see beings. They see giant craft. I never had any of that. At a very young age, I would see in the middle of the night our scenes flying by me like movies. really fast. I could never slow them down. I could never see what was happening. I couldn't stop them to see what I was supposed to be looking at. And it was terrifying because I couldn't slow it down. After the scenes would be flying by me, I would see a gray screen, and there would be a thin line going through the middle of it, kind of like a heartbeat type line. And when that cord was straight, I was safe. But when that cord kind of crunched together and would wave up and down, that's when I felt like I was losing my breath and I was gonna die. These kind of faded away when I was kind of reaching middle school, but it did for many, many years make me afraid to go to sleep at night.
Screen memories in the contact experience have two purposes. One is to shield the individual from a memory that they can't bear. Two is, it's a test. Are you going to break through the screen memory? Can you bear it after all? So the screen memory has two purposes. It is to let you off the hook if your soul does not want to engage in contact, and it is there to be broken down if you do want to make that step.
I'm Stacy McArdle, and I'm from Illinois, and I'm an experiencer and a seeker, and I'm just full of wonderment. From a very young age, I just had a knowing that I came from another place. I had been telepathically communicating with beings from other planets ever since I could remember. I had memories of being in a room getting ready to be born before I came to this planet, before I was in my mom's stomach. I was in this nondescript room with everything from human spirits to elementals to ETs. We were called to this gentleman that was manning a door, and we all lined up, and he opened the door, and all the sunlight flooded in, and we were on top of a mountain. There were two rivers with a strip of land in between. Jumping into that river meant you were going to be born soon. I was immersed in the water, and it was crystal clear, and there were colored fish, and all the plant life was very vibrantly colored, and all of a sudden, this human-sized fish shows up next to me, and he's telepathically communicating with me. He was telling me what to expect and what was going to happen. I knew I was going to go to another planet. I knew who my mother was going to be. And then all of a sudden, I was born. Over the years, more puzzle pieces from that memory come together and solidify it. So I always knew that I came from another planet.
I'm Jan Yonder. I'm a designer by trade, and I'm also an experiencer. My first experience that I remember, I was 7 years old, and we were on a flight to the Philippines. The sun was coming up, and I was just glued to the window. When my gaze shifted up, like to the horizon, boom, out of thin air is a classic UFO, like a saucer. It was as if the whole thing was made out of metal that was highly reflective. I could tell that it had a slight rotation. Shortly thereafter, it just zipped. It just instantaneous acceleration, but just so fast. It lit a fire in me that continued through elementary school. Most people hadn't had a UFO experience, and so I was kind of alone in that. I believed it, and I knew it was true, but my dad showed me the Condon report, and when they concluded that there was nothing to it, I knew with everything in me that that report was wrong. Right around when I had the UFO experience, I had gone to bed. At some point, I woke up in the middle of the night, and when I looked at the corner, my room was illuminated. I tilt out of bed, and there he is, the popcorn man. And he is on a bicycle. There's this giant popcorn. It's like two big popcorn containers hanging off the front wheel. And everything is covered in this thin, vertical yellow and red stripes. He had a straw hat, and on it was a ribbon. He had a tie, a vest, three-piece suit. And his skin was white like a clown. Curly black hair. He had weird blue eyes. The hole where your eyeball would be was this glowing baby blue light. He was very, very skinny. I guessed he was like 7.5 feet tall. And I am completely stunned. I freeze. And I'm like, this, what? No. And eventually, his head started to turn. He started to turn. I knew he was coming in my direction. The last thing I remember of the experience is when he made eye contact with me. And then it was gone. It was game over. And I don't even know what happened. That was the end of the memory.
In order to think clearly about what we are seeing, the place we have to go is to the brain itself. It organizes these perceptions into forms that the mind can then evaluate. But if you have no way at all from your past of relating it to anything, you're going to build it out of your imagination. And even though it's there, what is actually there and what you're seeing may be two entirely different things, and you can't tell.
My name is Ruth, and I'm from Wisconsin, West Central to be more specific. Live in a rural area. My first experience, I remember seeing stars, beautiful stars in the ceiling. The stars made me feel full of wonder, I guess. I started to realize that it wasn't what it was appearing to be, that I started to become more afraid. I remember floating up above my bed, up above the house. I was kind of flying, and I knew that I was going someplace. I couldn't see the craft. I believe it must have been cloaked, but I knew it was above me, and I knew I was going into it. I must have gotten some communication because I knew what I was supposed to do. I mean, when I went from the waiting room to the exam table, I knew I was supposed to do this. Either I thought it or I actually said the words, "Ruth, this is not a dream, this is real." Then I was back in my bed, and it was all done.
I'm always amazed when someone says that they have all of the answers about who the ET visitors are and the nature of their agendas. I wonder, how can that possibly be? Take, for example, Earthlings' quest to land on Mars. Just suppose the crew was made up of someone from Africa, China, Germany, and Scandinavia. If there were Martians and they came out to greet these visitors, could they identify the true extraterrestrial? Because of these visitors' genetics and evolution, they all look drastically different. In addition to that, they might all have different agendas. Scientific advancement, military conquest, industrial development, or peaceful exploration. And all of that in one spaceship from one planet. If we accept that life is prolific in the universe and that we're being visited, there is no way to know everything about every one of them. They all cannot be evil, child-eating monsters. And by the same token, they cannot all be ultra-spiritual, benevolent beings. I mean, hell, look at us. We've got a lot of work to do on our altruism, and we're traveling to other planets. To the Martians in our little fable, we're the aliens.
In October of 1985, things began to change in our life. There was an unusual event that took place at the little cabin in upstate New York. All of a sudden, in the middle of the night, the whole place lit up like daylight. And I noticed it. There was a great bang. I opened my eyes immediately because of the cries of my son downstairs. The light was pouring in the windows, but by the time I'd gotten downstairs, the light was gone. But I got a shotgun and I got a pistol. I got a alarm system. I could literally not sleep a night in that house without that alarm system. And I found myself patrolling the area with the shotgun. I became aware of a presence near me. And that was the beginning of a real descent, almost into madness. The fear that's connected with this is the same fear that a wild animal feels when it's captured. We will attack if cornered, we will run if we can, and when it does happen to us and it overwhelms us and devastates our egos and leaves us in a situation of helplessness in the hands of the unknown, we will, as often as not, simply bury that memory.
It's taken me a long time to be able to talk about this because it's been so bizarre and strange and unbelievable, and also because I was told not to. Some really big-hearted friends who knew about this and knew that something just wasn't right. And through many discussions, I finally was able to come to terms with it and admit it in public. And that was really hard. I was 7 years old, and I was in my bedroom, and it was in the middle of the night, and I awoke to hear this drone. So I rolled out of bed, and I decided I would go to the bathroom. I walk into the bathroom, and I shut the door, and I turn on the water. I was just looking at the water, and I stood there for a long time. Then I turned off the water, and I moved to my right, and I opened up the bathroom door. And when I did, I was face to face with, to what my mind said, was Ultraman. Ultraman was this character in Japanese television, and he was a silver guy with these huge eyes. To my 7-year-old mind, I was looking at that character. But we got very, very close. So I was eye to eye with him. He was no bigger than I was. And as he drew closer to me, I could feel myself being pulled. And I got afraid. I was terrified. And just then there was this huge flash of light. And there was this speeding kaleidoscope of lights, and I felt cold, but I didn't know where I was and what was going on. It felt like I was traveling, but I was unsure. But then I was standing again in that small hallway with this entity. But now this entity's back was in the bathroom, and my back was facing the hardwood stairs that were behind me. I can see him raise his right hand. There is a brilliant flash of light, and I felt the impact on my shoulder, and I fell. And I landed at the bottom of these stairs, and I heard my father scream, "What the hell is that?" And my mother came out, and they came to see their son sprawled. And I am saying, Ultraman is in my room. He's upstairs. I'm screaming. And my father looks at me, he's upset, and he bounds up the stairs. He went room to room and, opened doors, and he came to the top of the stairs. He looked down, and I'm crying, and he looked disappointed, maybe even a little disgusted. My father kind of gives my mother a look like, don't make a baby out of this kid. Walked me upstairs, and they did what parents do, you look under the bed, see, there's nothing there. My mom gives me a kiss on my forehead, tells me everything is going to be okay. A day later, my mom is telling me that it's time for a bath. So she took my t-shirt off and she said, honey, what's this? Kind of like looking around to make sure my dad wasn't around. Well, I told you, Mom, that, Ultraman was in my bedroom. A couple of days later, my father was taking me to the doctor. And as we're pulling in, he said to me, "Hey, listen, don't want to hear any of this Ultraman bullshit. You keep that to yourself. Doctor gave me an exam, asked me about my shoulder. Man, I saw my father. He was glaring at me. So I said, I don't know. Just not playing. And as I was walking out in the hall, I still remember him talking to my father in hushed tones, saying something about some sort of a scar brought on by intense heat. So I never thought about it again. And my father said to me, just keep that to yourself. Don't say anything. I don't want you scaring your sisters. That's the way it started. I was angry and I was afraid. And so I lied. And I lied so many times, I lied to myself. I've come to terms with the event. If you look at it, it's very distinct and there is a shape to it. There's physical evidence that everything I say is real and happened. And no one can take that away from me.
Marks on the body go back a long time. In the Middle Ages, if you were found to have an unusual mark on your body, that might be considered a witch's mark and you might end up being burned up. Many contact witnesses have marks on their bodies. I have one on my body, in fact. We're in contact with something that wants them there. But what are they? What are they there for? What are they in our lives? A mark has a specific meaning to whoever made it, and probably a meaning that is communicated to others that tells them something about who you are and who you are working with or belong to. Even it could be that these other entities that so many of us regard as aliens are actually members of our families. One of the things that they mean that's very important is it's a message that we are not only here around you, we are in you too. This is not communication, it's communion.
I was 7 years old. What in God's name did they want with me in particular?
I think they go to the children first because the children are too innocent not to be open to the possibility, because they have to start somewhere before the person is closed to the unknown.
You're probably not going to like this section because it has a lot to do with kids. And nobody likes when their children are subjected to things that parents haven't signed off on, let alone understand. When someone interferes with our children, it scares us. They're the future. They're our DNA. They're ours. Those facts have not stopped this phenomenon from interacting with kids. A lot of people are aware of the 1994 incident in Zimbabwe when grade school through middle school children saw a craft land just beyond their playground. They all rushed out there, saw a being, and received telepathic messages. You may be surprised to discover that this is not an isolated incident. 1989. Ronis, Soviet Union. 1978, Glasgow, Scotland. 1977, Wales, UK. 1977, Aberdeen, Scotland. It's the same basic scenario over and over again. Young children at recess, walking to or from school, a bright light, a silver disc, images, a being. 1967, Isle of Wight, UK. 1967, Crestview, Florida. 1966, Melbourne, Australia. 1952, Glasgow, Scotland, a different school this time. And the conclusive proof that our ET visitors believe that real men wear kilts. The earliest record of a school sighting was 1948, Greenock, Scotland. The places, names, and times of day change, but the communication is always the same. The puzzling thing is that the messages conveyed are given to children that would have absolutely no frame of reference to receive them. The Earth is precious. You're hurting your planet. Cherish your home. People are precious. You're hurting each other. Cherish one another. We are all one. As you realize from the dates of these events, climate change wasn't really on the tip of everyone's tongue at the time. It's as if ET were seeding the children to be aware of our universal connectiveness. We are where we live and what we consume, and they were preparing them to engage this problem when they reached adulthood.
Is it still happening? If it is, it remains very secret. This planet of ours is changing now very rapidly, and not in ways that are going to be conducive to the continued safety of anything on it, including us. And it may be that the experience is changing with the planet. And if that's the case, there might not be any reason anymore to educate children in the way they were being educated back in the 50s and 60s and probably the 70s.
After I finally came to terms with what had happened to me as a 7-year-old boy, I really started to analyze the details. I didn't want to miss anything. There was a part of this memory that was totally blank for me, and that bothered me. There was this huge flash of light, and then I remember coming back and out of the light, and I was standing opposite. I didn't know what happened. And that piece, that missing piece, it gnawed at me. It was like, it was this itch in the back of my mind, like, what happened? And I had to know. I just had to know. And I found in that group of people direction, and they directed me to a woman named Deb Shakti. She had over 40 years' experience as a quantum hypnotherapist, and her practice was globally renowned. Deb's entire approach was positive, and she considered it her life's purpose to help others awaken, heal, and grow. Part of her practice was being a lifelong yoga, meditation, and martial arts and fitness teacher, as well as a respected open channel of a highly advanced ET group known as the Teachers. Frankly, I didn't know what to make of that last part, but who was I to talk? At 7 years old, I had been visited by a small silver man that looked like he stepped out of a sci-fi TV show. What I can tell you is that when I first spoke to her, there was just this something about her, a genuine kindness that I resonated with, and her calm assurance that she could help me not only reclaim my memories, but that with her guidance, I could also find peace with the events of that night.
I'm Deb Shakti. I've been a professional hypnotherapist for many decades. I specialized a type of hypnotherapy that I call quantum hypnotherapy about 40 years ago. I do channeling because I'm able to access the universal stream of consciousness. I have had ET and interdimensional contact since I was first able to remember. I was born in California. I had a really cool little house. My brother and I were literally called out into the forest. We thought there was a forest fire in the middle of the night and saw a huge craft. I know that we were put in that craft and journeyed, but for me, all I remember were the lights. The next day, going out in secret, because we weren't supposed to have left the house at night. Going back out in the forest, in the place where we saw it, there was a burnt circle on the ground, and it was very hot there. I've been a yogi most of my life and a yoga teacher. I have all the clairs, clairsentience and all that, all the psychic gifts, which is very helpful in counseling people from a global perspective. It used to be people coming with simple human problems. How do I lose weight? How do I stop smoking? When do I find my true love? In the last couple of years, a lot of it has surrounded the ET or paranormal, if you want to use that term, interdimensional contact aspect. People who know they've had an experience, but they can't put it into the context of their own understanding. They want more information, or they might even want more, and they don't know how to do that. It seems to have coalesced over the last decade or so, and certainly in the last few years, to who am I? What am I here for? Can you help me figure this all out?
So I often wonder, why me? Why am I having these experiences? Why aren't people believing me? I'm perfectly sound. It's just a natural thing that a lot of people don't accept.
My family's telling me I'm crazy. I'm wondering, maybe I am crazy, because if everybody tells you you're crazy, it's you against the world, and it's a frustrating place to be.
I did not know why they chose me. I do know, once I realized that this was a real thing, that I wish that they hadn't.
Why me? Why me, right? What is the mission, right? Every one of us, you are the mission. You are the miracle. You are this magic that you are looking for in your life.
I didn't know it until many years later, but other family members have had experiences. So I went kind of all my life thinking that it was just a dream and no more. But then when I started to share it with people, they started sharing their experiences with me. So then I started to realize this has to be more than just a dream.
When I started researching, what wasn't resonating with me was this abduction, scary, torture. It didn't logically make sense to me. It was more of the message that the extraterrestrials were delivering to us that started resonating with me.
Why was I chosen? I made an agreement with these beings before I incarnated into this physical form. The purpose isn't realized until you get older. It will start to unfold.
What I'm talking about here is a series of choices. Early on, I was chosen perhaps at random to do something that cracked the cosmic egg. I went through a long experience of noticing this presence in my childhood, and I made another choice to engage with it. So I think it's a combination of probably chance, their interest in an individual, and choice.
I wondered all my life, even while I was lying. I meant, why me? I mean, I'm an average guy. I was an average kid. It bothered me. Was I being blamed for something or blessed? When I talked to Debs, I told her that I desperately wanted to find out these answers. because the bottom line is that she promised me peace. And I really needed peace.
I'm confident that you're going to get the answers that you came here for, and that you'll be able to put your life in a different context after today, in a more positive light. This process, as you know, has you go in as an observer. And when you are able to see and perceive and experience from that place, it's a completely different story. This tone will activate your heart a little bit, and I think you'll feel good with it. So remember, you just breathing as you're chanting the mantra. You breathe at your own pace and chant at your own pace. It'll be a wave between us, all right? So we'll begin. The key to falling into the abyss. And when you go into the unknown, you're not attached to the past. You're not making up the future. You're going into the unknown, and that's where all the magic happens, because that's where all potential exists. You have unlimited capability.
And don't ever let anyone say that hypnosis doesn't work. It does work in the hands of a real pro. If you can get past the barrier of compliance, you can sometimes evoke memories that are buried. Memories are buried by trauma. How many people, if you heard, who were in an auto accident or a plane crash or something, and they'll tell you, well, I don't remember a thing, but they do. Every instant of that experience is locked in there.
Quantum hypnosis is a therapeutic modality conceived and developed in the early 1980s by Debs Shakti, based on the quantum physics fundamental that everything is intimately connected, occurring simultaneously forever. An easier way to think of this is that popularized hypnosis allows one to access experiences that they personally have witnessed in the flesh, whereas quantum hypnosis allows one to access experiences anywhere, from any perspective in the universe.
People have experiences, but they're told lies about those experiences, so they don't talk about them. Debs has helped me a lot. She's helped me overcome some of my fears. She's helped me at least to get started on that right path of discovering myself. Finally, I can breathe a sigh of relief. I don't have that pressure built up inside of me anymore.
No matter how often people protest that they can't be hypnotized, I always laugh and say, we'll see.
I realized, maybe that'll take me back to the fast dreams. You're viewing consciousness flashing before your eyes. You can't slow yourself down. And that silver cord could be connected to the silver cord that connects our souls to our bodies. And the message was, I have to learn to trust that where I am right now in this process is the perfect place for me to be. And as soon as I start to trust that, amazing doors will open.
Sigmund Freud coined the term screen memory when he examined some of the most vivid visual memories deriving from childhood in his patients. He came to realize that these distorted recollections were constructs that the mind would create to insulate the person from some childhood psychological trauma. Ultraman was my screen memory that shielded me from something that my terrified 7-year-old mind just could not process. What happened to me as a boy was not only frightening, it was so unbelievable that I lied to myself about it for almost 45 years so I would not have to face the event, the sneering world, or my darkest fears that it actually did happen.
Are you going to break through the screen memory? Can you bear it after all? Or are you going to decide instead, wait a minute, something was going on. What was it? I want to know. That's when you start to engage in contact.
When I started this hypnosis, I have to tell you, I was afraid. I was nervous about what I'd say. I was nervous about how it would be handled. I trusted Debs enough to go under.
Let the body just rest there. So be open and allow everything to flow. I wanted to be gentle with him because he was a person who had a lot of fear and was already very vulnerable. What I'd like for you to do now is to take yourself, if you like, to the place where you were that 7-year-old John. You're in the bathroom. You're standing in front of the sink. Can you go there now for me, please?
I can hear the water. I see the light underneath the door. I turn the water off. I don't want to go out yet.
Describe what happens as you go. The more he described, the deeper he went. And the deeper he went, the better he was able to journey.
I opened that door. I had seen Ultraman 1,000 times. I had seen him in my dreams. I knew for sure that that's what it was.
And there were times where he got very emotional. You're safe, John. It's okay. It's safe.
Somebody there?
Someone's there. Remember, objective observation, report to me.
There's a man there.
There's a man there.
And he looks like an ant.
And this dark, ant-like creature, he came at me. And I fought for my life.
But he doesn't have antenna like a normal ant. He has like antlers. And he has them on top of his head, and he has them out of the sides of his cheeks.
And it was fascinating, but it was so hard because he was absolutely uncomfortable. That must look really different from anything you've ever seen before.
He's trying to use those antlers on me.
How so?
He's pushing things out of his antlers like energy or thoughts or something. He's trying to push me out, so I'll go. And I'm not going. Oh. No.
I recognized him. And I thought, oh, I know what you're here for. You're going to take me.
He doesn't care about me. He doesn't care.
He's not an empathic being like you are. He's different.
Not. He's not.
He was so brave because everything there was terrifying to him.
Oh, this has happened before. And now I know that I have no choice.
Everything came back to me. I remembered previous occasions when he had come for me, and I had fought him then.
Where does he want you to go, John?
I'm moving towards him, and I can feel the temperature change in the hallway. There was a flash, and then we were gone.
It felt like heat that came up from the floor, and it just kind of pushed me back like this.
He just tapped into different scenes of his experience, and it disturbed him greatly.
And the next thing I know, I'm in this cavern. And I knew I'd been here before.
Let's move forward to where you go then. Go there now.
This place is immense.
Huge.
It's huge. I mean, I could scream and it would echo.
You're in a huge place. Bring it into focus.
There's a big opening at the top.
Mm-hmm.
It looks natural. It looks like it's like a cave. There are like stalactites, things hanging down from the edges of that hole.
All right.
And there's a very bright light up there.
Oh.
And it's dark. It's very dark in here.
Safety and peace. What do you do here when you're here, John?
I don't know where they come from, but there are these screens, these big screens. And they show you stuff very fast.
I tried to move, but they had some sort of hold on me, and I would be forced to see these 3 huge screens.
So you see the pictures. They're the same picture that make up a big picture. And they move from my right to my left.
Are they speaking with you?
They don't talk. They use the picture in your head or something. They're different, though. They're different than the ant guy. He's their bully. He doesn't care.
They're indifferent.
Don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Don't care.
They just have a job to do. When you were telling me that story before, you said there were lots of lights, like a carousel or kaleidoscope. Is this what you were seeing? These fast-moving pictures making light?
It was like I was looking out of a train. Moving very fast. But the message is in between the lines, is in between them. Is inside, is inside, is inside.
And when we got to where it felt like it couldn't get any more information, I asked permission to talk to his higher self, to that grand wisdom that is so zoomed out from everything, it can see all of the experiences at once and bring it into kind of a more coherent explanation.
But it was almost like somebody was right behind me, and I could feel their presence. It was like a force, and my mouth opened up, and I didn't know what I was saying.
May I address your higher self right now? The one who knows everything? Yes? Thank you so much. And the voice that came out was a whole different John than I had ever seen before.
The boy is prepared. It must be strong. There is a plan. It will occur.
It will occur.
And he will be prepared.
And he is prepared. And I said, prepared for what? And they said, for what's to come next, the plan. And then suddenly, he just sat up, his eyes opened, and he had this laser beam eye contact with me. You're back.
Yeah.
He said, it's completed, and then started spewing forth all of this incredible wisdom.
That is why they can't take me anymore. It's because it's no longer necessary. The point was to get me strong enough. It's interesting because to me now, it makes perfect sense. Oh my God, I can't tell you how clear that is to me. The pictures didn't matter. The message was actually in the smaller fragments and the lines between. But the message, the information was coming through.
He has a purpose. There is a plan. And he needs to get to work.
There is a war for our souls, not in the conventional sense.
Yeah.
But service to self, service to others.
He described what it's all about, kind of a preparation speech for what's to come, not just for him, but for humanity.
no one will escape its touch. I know, and I know it's within my lifetime. This is what my purpose is.
When I went under, everything clarified. And I experienced something very real. I was taken somewhere, and I found out that I had experienced it several times before. There's something coming. And it's going to affect every person on the planet. These encounters that I had as a child have been conditioning me. I knew that there was a conflict for the soul of man, that we are at a crossroads. And it would be so easy to destroy ourselves. It's going to be scary. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be all of these things. The message I got was, be ready. The world is asleep. Be ready.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the SA. My gosh.
Tonight, the highly anticipated report on unexplained aerial phenomena is here, but the answers are not.
144 separate sightings of UFOs by the U.S. military. The other 143 remain a complete and total mystery.
Over a dozen of those reports include observations of unusual movement patterns or flight, and they can't explain those.
So the most sophisticated military in the world has no idea what these things are or even how they move from place to place.
Yeah, ETs are coming here, or however they want to define it. The second question is going to be, how the hell did they get here?
We have, in the Pentagon, a whole lot more of those videos, and if you think the quality of the ones you've seen is good, you ain't seen nothing yet.
The way that the military has covered up UFO sightings is legend.
The government had an official policy where they would deny that what they people saw. They would try to create ridicule around this. This is proven through declassified documents.
The Air Force has been accused of hiding information about UFOs.
These charges are absolutely untrue.
Since Roswell, their never-ending litany of weak excuses like weather balloons that move over 600 miles per hour, swamp gas that leaves circular burn marks and radioactivity on the ground, and atmospheric inversions that can invade fighter jets, have sated skeptics and frustrated genuine investigators for the better part of a century now. Even with the latest disclosures in the New York Times of sightings of the now famous Tic Tac, we find that information has been hidden since 2004. The bottom line is, those guys don't want us to know what's going on, and they've done everything in their power to sidestep, obfuscate, and outright troll anybody that has come forward with the truth.
In this newly released pile of records, like the page you see now, 4 words on the entire page were readable and not blacked out. And there are hundreds and hundreds of pages just like that.
Regular people, on the other hand, have, from the very beginning, matter-of-factly reported these occurrences, and in general, they were communicated by the media, by and large, fairly. Throughout the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
I've been giving you details on the UFO that hung over Redmond, Oregon for at least 2 hours early this September morning.
Hell, in response to the public's interest and concern, the House Minority Leader at the time, Gerald Ford, demanded a full-blown investigation by the House Armed Services Committee in 1966. And in 1969, the sitting governor of Georgia, Jimmy Carter, felt comfortable enough to file a UFO report. It all changed later that year in December. Armed with the dismissive Condon report and the inconclusive end to Project Blue Book, there was a sea change.
But Blue Book is now closed. But reports are still being made. So under whose command? And where are they being forwarded to?
The ones that were reported only showed up on the cover of tabloids or the punchlines of late-night hosts' conversations.
Did you know there are UFOs out here flying around unidentified?
This would be the place for them, Southern California.
People wanted to keep their jobs and their position in society without the uncomfortable snickers and jibes behind their backs about where their tinfoil hats were. Here's a question to those watching this film. If the establishment has spent all this money and effort to hide and discredit UFO sightings, which are pretty innocuous in themselves, to what ends would the powers that be go to hide something as mind-blowing as alien interaction with their citizens? The good news is that there are more people asking questions and demanding answers now about this subject than ever before.
From the believers who think the aliens are here to the hardcore skeptics who spend their whole time debunking that stuff, they think it's good that we're finally having this conversation.
They're saying we need to get on board on this. It's finally time to figure it out. That's a major shift in attitude.
There's a lot of pressure by the global public and the American public, for answers.
Let's take this subject out of the shadows and put it where it belongs, in the spotlight.
Well, at this point in John's progression through the work that we were doing, I realized that he was on a continual quest for understanding and meaning of the experiences that he had gone through and still undergoes. And I realized it was time that maybe he should meet someone who had similar experiences in his life and who had been documenting them, and more than anybody on the planet understands this in the same way. And that person is Whitley Strieber.
Whitley has written more on this subject than anybody else. And he has a way of sharing first person his reactions, and also just being completely raw, truthful with the facts. He truly is the harbinger of this information to the world.
I've never thought of myself as being on a mission. I'm very interested in understanding the world around us, and I'm very interested in the welfare of mankind. And I think this is a great big universe, and I just sense that what's here is very unique and very beautiful and extraordinary. What is the destiny of the human soul? The visitors have taught me that living out of love, compassion, and humility are essential to building a strong soul. And my question is always, what does love really mean? Where is that feeling in myself, and how do I see it in others and in the world around me? Compassion, how do I not forget to find it when someone makes me angry? Humility. Without humility, we're not fully human. We have to be humble. But in the end, every single one of us is exactly the same. We are all equal, profoundly equal. My love of mankind and of this planet is my mission. There is a peace beyond this life that we will find and we will taste. And these people who are on this mission are all on the mission for the same reason.
If I could go back and tell my 12-year-old self what I know now, I would tell her it's gonna be okay. That I'm not going crazy, that these experiences are real. You're not alone. We're not alone.
I floated up toward him. He was no longer the popcorn man. He was just light, and I was just light, and we merged. I got a download. We are one. It was the most intense love I can describe. I never felt love like that before. The answer is that we need to grow spiritually. We need to realize that we really are one, because what we do to the planet, what we do to someone else, is actually we're doing it to ourselves.
This is the start of an awakening for me. These are genuine experiences, and they're nothing to be afraid of. It's opened up new relationships for me. It's made me closer to people that I love. They're here primarily to help us.
All my experiences led me to the belief that I was protected and that these were loving experiences. I volunteered to come here for a mission, and that was to use my knowledge and ability to try to raise awareness and help heal the world.
I'm starting to pay attention to life, to nature. There was this one night I walked out to a huge explosion of light. It was almost like a dance, and I was just blown away. It's changed me to such a great degree in terms of my level of compassion towards humans, towards our planet.
The Earth's frequency is rising. All life on the planet is adjusting itself to it. Then we will be able to see more colors, see phenomena that we cannot see at this moment. These reflections of our own higher self are basically here to remind us that we are truly family, that we are one, and that is the beginning of a beautiful new world.
My relationship has changed to this phenomena. We're all one energy, we're one source, we're all aspects of God, and that includes the plant kingdom, the animals, the humans, our star being friends. That's all from the same spark of light. When we all realize that we have the capability of working intuitively and expanding our consciousness, that's going to change the world. And we can live a very prosperous, loving, heart-centered experience. It made me cry. It's really beautiful.
My biggest hope, my biggest wish, my biggest prayer is that the world come into coherence, that we end the separate, dualistic nature of our species. Everyone is connected to everyone. When we can see things from that global, zoomed out view that our star friends see us, there's no denying what we have to do. We have to become peaceful, harmonious. We need to learn to work together. We're all connected on some level.
When people watch television or they see shining lights in the sky, that's one thing, and it's fascinating. And you can discuss it over coffee. But if you're met face to face with something so alien as an intelligence from another planet or dimension, that will change you. It changed me. I can look at those things through the eyes of a man and realize they're not to be feared. But they must be dealt with.
We are all on a journey. The edge of time is an ecstatic union with the unknown. It's the increase of ecstasy that is the aim of consciousness. We've come to the end of an age. Something is happening on planet Earth. Look around you. Everything is changing, and it's not changing in ways that are going to be positive for the human species. It's going to be getting harder to live on Earth because Earth is tired and old. There is a peace beyond this life that we will find and we will taste. The visitors are here as midwives to the birth of man. That is the answer. Well, John, I think you are ready to go through a new door. I'm going to open that door and you are going out.
I'm at peace with the information, but I am still struggling with integrating that information. That bright, shiny lights in the sky can make you think about who you are as a person. How does that make sense? These are the things that I'm seeking. These are the things that I need to understand. I need some more help. And now I need to take the next steps. So I'm hoping I'll be guided to the next person who can give me some direction and help me finally, at long last, move forward.
Please, do me a favor. Take the child.
Two in the cash in the here and now. We coming through, let it do what it does allow. For more and more to funnel in, just to let it out. No matter what, we get it in, beyond any doubt. Floating freely in the here and now, the eternal void. Right in this leading edge of consciousness, and that's the point. You can keep your Sigmund Freud, but then this jointly blossom. But it's a Sani Shikani wisdom that is awesome. False beliefs we toss and radiating out. Frequencies that birth these new realities we talking about. Alan, could you tell him we never have been alone? Yeah, can't stop showing these people how to phone home and one shot stop. Planting seeds that grow even taller than mustard. Here to spread the truth, we always got the custard. Always making moves, exposing all of these imposters. All about the truth, ain't nothing but the truth. Basta. Poetry, purpose, and passion. We get out of our way into the flow, repassion. This formula that works in a certain fashion, raising the vibration, which is the objective of the session. Poetry, purpose, and passion. We get out of our way into the flow, repassion. This formula that works in a certain fashion, raising the vibration, which is the objective of the session. Whatever knowledge you be stashing, holding it back might be breaking your neck as false beliefs come crashing down in profound ways unwitnessed till now. The opening of the seventh seal, now holy cow. Whatever goes around comes around. That's why we sending out this love and light and knowledge and wisdom through the sound and frequency of the crystal skulls. Utilizing the earth's crystalline grid in order to announce the age of Aquarius, in which portals appear, in which we have open contact that's honest and sincere. When the Christ consciousness will arrive here, in those days when the hybrid children take their place and join the human race, meeting face to face with our future selves, creating the third reality, casting powerful spells. Ring the bells. The time is here, the time is now for your higher self to come through. If you allow yourself, to be authentic, whatever that might look like, please don't present it. Do or don't, we don't try, we don't attempt it. Get into the flow, let go and represent it. The one that is all, that is all, that is all. Claiming our birthright, keep your pedestal. We down to the ground, grounded in. Reaching out to the central sun, letting it in with its powerful spin. Take the child within to a whole nother level and raise the frequency for that something that's never settled. Hit that pedal to the metal, there's no time to hate. As we go expand, multiply, accelerate. Hey, falling through the cracks, riding these waves away. Carried away by the wave of ascension every day. Giving it all we got, we do not discriminate. Falling up blind in time through this elevated state. Poetry, purpose, and passion. We get out of our way into the flow, repassion. This formula that works in a certain fashion, raising the vibration, which is the objective of the session. Poetry, purpose, and passion. We get out of our way into the flow, repassion. This formula that works in a certain fashion, raising the vibration, which is the